Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be for us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Will you please honor our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Laurie.
Here.
Counsel Martin.
Here.
Counsel Mendonça.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Counsel Nunn.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Thank you. Under Mayor's business, we first have a proclamation to the Lowell Commission on Disability in recognition, Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for James Curtis. Many people knew Jim. He's been an attorney in the city for over 50 years. Lowell native, went to the University of Michigan, Harvard Law School, was a World War II veteran, practiced in the firm Goldman and Curtis for many, many years. Last week I spoke about Joe Donahue being instrumental in the merger of Lowell Tech and Lowell State into the then University of Massachusetts Lowell, and Mr. Curtis was also instrumental in that effort. He's survived by his 5 children, and he will be 6 grandchildren. He was married for over 50 years, and will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd all please rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers. Under Mayor's business, we have a proclamation to offer to the Lowell Commission on Disability in recognition of October as National Disability Month. On behalf of the City Council, I wish to offer this proclamation. Whereas nationwide, more than 17 million Americans live daily with a physical, mental, sensory, or self-care disability. And whereas the City of Lowell recognizes that despite a person's physical or mental limitations, many are part of a highly skilled talent pool who offer many more abilities than their disabilities preclude. And whereas the City of Lowell strongly supports the action taken by the United States Congress in 1988 to declare October National Disability Employment Awareness Month, aimed at promoting a diverse workforce and valuing all employees for their skills. Now therefore I, Patrick O. Murphy, Mayor of the City of Lowell, do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and urge all citizens to recognize this very important cause, given this first day of October 2013. We have to receive it, our Chairman of the Commission on Disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you know, October is Disability Awareness Month all across the nation, and we have this month to make you more aware of the abilities of people with disabilities. Right now, the unemployment rate for disabled individuals is very high, and it doesn't need to be that way. The Lowell Commission on Disabilities is actively working with members of the community to try to initiate some employment programs. We're working on having a job fair sometime next year to hopefully make employers more aware of people with disabilities and what benefits they can bring to the workplace. We are working with the Career Center to try to get this together. And also on October 15th happens to be White Cane Awareness Day, and that there'll be a White Cane Awareness at the State House on the, I think it's called the Grand Stairway. They'll have that on the 15th. So there are a few things coming up regarding Disability Awareness Month. I also wanted to make everyone aware that we are working with LTC and are very close to the finish line on this in bringing closed captioning to the city council meetings. We hope to have that up and running within the next month or so. So a few good things, and the commission's working hard for everybody in Lowell. If you have any questions or any issues, you can give us a call at 978-710-9005, and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, on the city clerk's portion of the agenda, we have minutes of the city council meeting of September 24th for acceptance. Motion to accept. So moved by Councilman Mendonça, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Under unfinished business, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning, section 436, for construction trailers. I'd entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing on October 22nd, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have the city manager's portion of the agenda. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one other issue that's should be listed on here, but I think it did not make it. We have Sean Harmon from Harmon Paints here to provide the council with an update. I believe I put a memo on each councilor's desk today, a copy of a memo that I provided back in, I think it was in July. Mr. Harmon has come forward, as many recall, we had looked at investing some money in this chamber in the upcoming year to do something about the paint, the window treatments, the rug, and the sound system, video system, making some general improvements. And Mr. Harmon and a number of other individuals in the community became excited by the possibility of this taking place and wanted to lend their assistance, not only their expertise, but also their some financial assistance to expand the scope of the work to give the chamber the attention that it truly deserves. And if the council would indulge me, if we could have Mr. Harmon speak to us about what's happening with that and give his ideas of how we would move forward with this. And we've been working jointly with Mr. Harmon on this, and but I would like to give him the opportunity, if possible, to provide that.
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Mr. Harmon.
Thank you. At the risk of being repetitive, I wrote a précis in case I got stage fright. In early June of this year, Councilor Leahy asked me to stop in at the chamber to provide a color consult for the walls. I came away with the impression that a coat of paint by itself was not sufficient to do justice to this space. So I proposed an idea whereby private donors and local artists would partner with the city to completely renovate the chamber. I met with the city manager and the mayor to describe the idea, which they embraced. I also made some preliminary contacts with potential donors as well as some of the local arts community to gauge their reactions to the project. It was well received there as well, and some preliminary pledges of support were made. I also contacted Jim Cook from the Lowell plan to see about doing the project through a 501c3. He was very helpful. Last month, I met with the manager, the city CFO, members of the DPW, the purchasing agent, to work through the mechanics of how the project could be accomplished. I needed to understand what the rules are for acquiring things by the city. How can they be gifted by private donors, and what I was facing in terms of challenges. In short, what it comes down to is essentially, if the city were to agree to partner with private donors and the local arts community, what we would do, if you support this partnership, much, if not most, of the complete renovation would be funded through private donations, plus the installation of works by local artists would be done at virtually no cost to the taxpayer. These artworks would be comprised of landscapes and views from around the city. I expect the entire project could be finished by early December. The fundraising for artworks would also be done privately. The works, all by local artists, would be professionally juried by museum directors and gallery curators so that only the highest quality would hang in this chamber. I should probably point out that if the fundraising for the art is very successful, it might involve moving some of these pieces to the first floor half landing in City Hall. Naturally, if that were to happen, the budget for doing so would include providing appropriate lighting to display the photos at their best advantage. In other words, what the donors and the local art community are prepared to do is come forward with tens of thousands of dollars to completely renovate this chamber and do it in a timely fashion instead of a coat of paint is not going to do it. Waiting around for money to come around is just not going to do it. We can get it done, and we can get it done before Christmas. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Mercia?
Well, I'm rather concerned when you say artwork. Does it mean they'll be in a frame, or are you going to perform, the artist going to do the artwork on the walls itself?
No, what would happen, local artists who make their living painting would submit their works to a jury of professionals. They would make the decision. It would be professionally framed, it would be hung, curated, it would be hung using tamper-proof attachments to these walls. It would be done in a tasteful way. Essentially, the entire renovation would be done in a tasteful, but more importantly, a durable way. Each of the aspects of the design project are meant to last for decades. We shouldn't have to face this problem again in our lifetime.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to just say, express on, at least on my behalf, but I think I speak for many when I say thank you to Mr. Harmon. I mean, this is really, we're here every week, and it's a matter of routine, but it really is, a very beautiful space. And I think it, deserves to look the way it was intended when it was built. And things get old, they wear out, they need updating. And so we appreciate the interest and the effort to making this something that all citizens of Lowell should and will be proud of. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for accommodating me this evening. I should also point out that pending your approval, the donors I've already got pledges that exceed 50% of the needed revenues. There's also a lot of buzz among the arts, members of the arts community, and I have every confidence that if you support the proposal, that we can get the job done with practically no expense to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Could you tell us what the project cost is at this point?
No, I can't. Not
Irrespective of the
precisely, no.
artwork, just you're going to put in, you are going to paint?
Right. Well, obviously, essentially, at this point, a lot of it is going to depend on the success of the fundraising. I can pass out, I brought a sample of a letter of appeal that I had sent out in June, which you're welcome to look over, that essentially brought in some money. But frankly, until I got your backing, I was hesitant to continue. I think I can be successful in bringing in all the necessary funding. Essentially, what it would do is replace the carpeting, replace the drapery, install block-out shades for use during audiovisual presentations, obviously paint for the walls and the ceiling, upholstery replacement for the hardwood flooring, but again, it depends. The numbers get reached as the money comes in. So we'll do the most important things first, and as I say, I have every confidence that we can cover most of the cost.
Great. Well, thank you. I think, when times are thin, or even when they're not, the chamber, it's a beautiful chamber, but it needs some help, and we have so many other priorities in the city that this definitely tends to be at the bottom.
In the letter, pardon my interruption, please.
No, that's fine, just, it's important, the way that we present,
I think it's very important.
present the chamber to residents and people that come to
And
visit.
in the letter of appeal, I understand that the discussion has already taken place in the chamber about getting the job done.
Right.
And we appreciate that.
Right.
We think we can get it done faster. And again, it's not that money is not a consideration, but the thing is, this is going to be a digression, which you probably don't want to hear.
That's okay. You answered the question, you're out there, we're raising money for this, and that's important. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Leahy and then Council Kennedy.
Thank you. Yeah, when we initially brought this up, I brought the motion, and we initially got some cost estimates, and we were coming in about 25,000, maybe. I don't think we had drapes in there at the time, but you know, thankful that Mr. Harmon has come forward and taken this project under his wing and everything he's done for it. And I think, you know, this is going to come out beautiful. It's appreciation for people that use it, for the citizens that come in. And I just think, you know, we've done so much work on the outside, the inside of the building, and why not start in here in the people's chamber? So thank you to Mr. Harmon for coming forward, and I hope we can proceed with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Council Kennedy and then Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Harmon, in order to be done by Christmas,
Yes.
when would you need to commence? When would you need to begin?
Well, okay, right now, there are materials that are sitting on hold at a couple of mills, pending the go-ahead. Once that's done, I've got a 2-week turnaround to bring materials in. Once that's done, the fabrication has to take place tailored to the windows and the carpeting, the block-out shades, I mean, all the other aspects. In terms of for how long would you need to vacate the chamber, is that the question?
No, just when would you need to begin in order to be done by, is it something that, would it take 2 months? Is it going to take?
I anticipate that allowing for, let's say, a 2 to 3 week turnaround for the arrival of the materials, installation should be another 2 weeks after that at the very most. Again, I think we can be done by early December.
So you're saying 3 weeks before you get the materials and then 2 weeks to complete the job?
I won't be driving the truck, so I don't know exactly when the materials will get here.
Yeah.
But the thing,
But if it
that's a
was-
timetable. That's a timetable based on my conversations with the suppliers. That's a timetable that I envision.
Okay. And it seemed like by your comments that we haven't raised enough money yet, right, to cover this? Is that?
I think with a nod, I think we're going to be okay. If it comes to that, again, I've got more than half of the money pledged. As far as the success of the arts fundraiser, I'm not spearheading that. Somebody far better equipped to do that is doing that. I'm only handling the acquisition of funds for the actual renovation. But the acquisition of the artworks for the city is a parallel project, and they need to be seen as one gift.
Okay. And so is the project, do you see the project as being several components? In other words, you have the walls, you have the woodwork, you have the floor, you have the rug, you have the windows. I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is, since all the money is not committed yet, since maybe 50% of the money is committed, what if we never reach the whole amount? What would be the order in which the work would be done?
It will all be done. It will all be done. I mean, the thing is, there are some ancillary things that have been discussed. The initial concerns were with the drapery, with the carpeting, with the wall. Essentially, more outlying than that was the reupholstering your chairs. We've got the floor needs to be refinished. The city manager has come forward and offered a somewhat of a sort of some matching help on the part of the taxpayers, which we may have to look to and perhaps not. But I have no doubt, I have absolutely no doubt that this project will be finished and will be done well and done very soon.
Will the chambers have to be vacated during the time the work is?
Well, we got to get out when they're replacing the carpeting. just as you would in your own home. In other words, for the amount of time it takes to take up the carpeting, to install the pad, to put in several elements, I mean, it's a matter of, I suppose, a day or something for that. You know, the walls will have to be cleaned off. They'd have to be prepared and painted, however much time that takes. The drapery gets installed. I don't know how long it takes to install all the draperies. I mean, the actual installation should give us downtime of no more than a few days, to be honest, perhaps a week at the outside. It's really, at this point, my challenge is to get the materials in, to make sure that they're suitable for use in a public space, and they are. They're the fire retardant, they're necessary for hanging in public buildings. All that stuff has been covered. I can't be much more precise than that. I expect that we can get this job done by early December, through early December.
Okay. Is there a written proposal, or is this all written down, or a schedule, or is it?
Well, I mean, I can, I don't know that there is, actually.
Okay. Okay.
No, I've
that's all.
certainly been doing a lot of writing, but that wasn't, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I just wondered whether there was or there wasn't.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, the thing is, and I suppose I ought to have written something down, but the thing is, essentially what it is if you agree to it, then the partnership between the city, private donors, and the local arts community will include a complete renovation of this space to include the installation of high-quality landscapes and views of Lowell on these walls that will essentially complete
Well,
the
I think
picture.
that's what Council Mercer was asking. Are you talking about murals?
No, I'm talking about paintings,
Paintings that
framed
would hang,
paintings,
okay.
individual works of art, so that essentially the work of I mean, if we were to, let's say, commission a mural, that would be the work of one artist. What we want to do is we want to share all of this space with as many of the local arts community as possible. And we also, I mean, frankly, it's a beautiful city, so why shouldn't we have pictures depicting those beautiful sites? I mean, again, it's all going to be perfectly tasteful, and it'll all be wonderful, assuming it's successful. Again, the fundraising for that is not sitting on my shoulders. I'm just handling the renovation part.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Council Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on my part, I want to say thank you. This is quite a generous gift. As far as the timetable, it appears the planning began last June.
The initial idea got pitched last June when I came into and I saw the state of the room. So I approached the city manager and discussed the possibility, and approached some donors and pitched it to them in the produce aisle at Market Basket. And they embraced the idea, and they offered to pledge some support. One of them was generous enough to offer a challenge up for other potential donors that would be matched. So, I mean, based on that and based on my ability to massage and persuade, I think I can bring in the money.
I think I do my best work at the Moulis's also, as probably many of us do. It appears to me anyway, what the committee or the donors are looking for is a nod from this city council, and that will complete the fundraising, knowing we're behind it, and you'll be able to move on.
That's exactly right.
I'd like to make a motion to ask the city manager and the mayor and maybe a committee of councilors to work with the group and ensure that they have the resources from the city that they need to do this by December. It appears this plan is very well thought out. They're waiting for the nod to get the money. The artists have already considered probably what they're going to do. I think it's time that we just move on and say thank you. But I would like at least the mayor to set up a committee to find a way to honor the individuals who were involved in this. If that's fine with the mayor.
Sure. I would caution against a motion at this time because this was really supposed to be informational, and that would conflict then with the open meeting law taking an actual
That's fine.
decision.
I would just like to make sure it's in the groundwork that we will thank the people who involved. This is a generous gift, and
I'm really shocked at it, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon, and then Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Herman. It appears that a lot of the planning at this time is in your head. It's a great one, too. And I really don't see why we should not support this partnership between the city council or between the city and the private donors. And I understand that this is an informational part of it. And I'm looking forward to support this because there's no reason why we should not support this. The quicker, the sooner, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Okay, so I'm confused. Mr. Manager, there's not going to be a vote on this. It wasn't on the agenda. Mr. Harvin is kind enough to go out and do some fundraising, but I'm a little confused. Is there tax money being used for this or not?
That's unclear at this time. There was money appropriated for this purpose, but Mr. Harmon and the people he's working with are interested in trying to help us move that along, either without expending any of that money that was appropriated, or supplementing that to the degree that we can do a nicer job on the chamber.
Where was that appropriated? What particular line
I
item?
believe that was in the capital budget.
There was money specifically for
$25,000.
repair and renovation of the council chamber?
Correct.
Yeah, how much was that?
$25,000.
25,000, okay. So, I thought I heard, are the local artists donating the art, Mr. Harmon, or is the city going to be purchasing art?
No, they're not. No, they will be remunerated through private funds for their work, for their labor. This is to support them. It's not to bleed them.
Right.
Yeah, it's a separate parallel fundraising effort, and if it's vastly successful, then a lot of people will do well. If it is less successful, then fewer people will do well. But we're certainly not coming to the city looking for money to pay the artists. Although, to be honest, art is the handmaid of human good is the motto of this city, and I think it's a good marriage.
I just want to be clear. I just want to know exactly what we're giving a nod on or not. So, thank you. This has been helpful, but could we get some more information on this for the future?
To follow on, can I only point out that in other words, I understand that there's apparently, since I'm not on the agenda, that you can't vote on it, but the sooner you let me know that you do support the plan, the sooner I can get back to work.
If I may, just a couple of points. Ms. Hyman, we'll have a vote for the council to endorse the project because the last time we spoke, you were reluctant to have them accept a gift until it was all compiled. So I understand that. So we'll do an endorsement, then there'll be an acceptance of the gift.
Yeah.
But with regards to Councilor Elliott's question, the council did approve the $25,000 for renovations to the chamber, which included what we talked about at the time was the flooring, the rug, and the paint, and hopefully the window shades. But what's being talked about is a more elaborate rug, more elaborate window treatments, and some different painting than originally anticipated.
Okay. I just want to know what we're voting on, where the money is coming from, and if it's in the budget. And Mr. Harmon, I think we all agree this is a good thing.
Oh, good.
Councilman Donson, then Councilor Mercia.
Yeah, I was just going to state, the manager's already stated it, and I think everyone here will agree it's a good project. It's something, we had already appropriated funds to do it. So this will, in essence, save us money, and even if they don't meet their fundraising goals, if we spend less than the appropriated amount to finish the project, I think we'll still get a good product out of it. And the open meeting law is getting in our way right now, but I'm sure either the mayor or the manager can prepare the proper vote of resolution for a future meeting, and we'll get it done as soon as we can.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's in essence what I was going to say, that we can't vote on anything, but the mayor could, through the mayor to the city solicitor, could provide the proper vote since we're on a regular schedule for next week.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the manager. Mr. Manager, I understand that you're going to put this on the agenda for next week for a vote. And let me join with my colleagues. I think this is a great idea, too. But I would like to see something on paper so that there was some sort of a schedule and maybe some sort of a budget. I think that's that's just proper that there should be that way, and it doesn't need to be hard, fast, or that strict. It has to be something like that, so that we know going in what's going to be involved. So I'm assuming that that would be part of your preparation for the vote next week?
We'll try to get that. I mean, the $25,000 that was already approved by the council, I mean, this is one of those situations where we could have just told Mr. Harmon, leave us alone, forget about it, and come in and we already had the $25,000, and we could have moved forward with this. You know, I think the budget for doing this really is dependent upon how successful Mr. Harmon is, and then trying to determine what can be spent. So
Yeah.
a budget to that extent is a little bit more difficult, but I will do my best to see if we can. Essentially, it's the $25,000 was appropriated, and then anything that Mr. Harmon is able to generate offsets that or supplements that.
I understand that, and I think that's a great thing, but I don't think anybody starts any project, or at least they shouldn't, without at least having an idea of what the cost is gonna be, no matter who's gonna pay for it, and what the duration of the project's gonna be. And as I said, it doesn't have to be that strict or that rigid, but there should be something like that on paper, certainly more, at least for me, the first I've ever heard about this is right now. I mean, I was here during the budget, and I knew that we had appropriated 25 grand, and actually I wondered why it never happened. Because my understanding was that when we had the discussion during budget time, that was gonna occur over the summer.
Correct.
When the council was on, every other week, like second and fourth Tuesday sessions. And that never happened, but I've never heard about this, and I think it's superior to the original idea. But I would be a lot more comfortable if there was some sort of a budget and some sort of a schedule of how long it's gonna take.
We'll try to put something together for you. On your desk, though, Counselor, is a letter or memo that was provided to the council back in July regarding this matter.
Mr. Harmon?
Yes, perhaps I wasn't clear, Councilor Kennedy. I have a budget. The thing is, what my budget expands as I bring in more money. In other words, I have, there are certain the basic elements I've already paid for. And through the mechanics of how it is that the city operates, I know that the things that have to be paid for through private donation, because if they were to exceed $5,000, then that particular aspect of the project has to go out to bid. And again, this was going to be my little digression. Is the thing is, instead of going for the cheapest product, we've decided we really want to go for quality. And so those aspects will be covered through private donations. My ability to raise money is going to dictate how much money we have to go to the city coffers to supplement the work. But trust me, I have a fairly comprehensive budget.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilman Johnson, second by Council Lurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
Good evening.
Being after 7 o'clock, we move to general public hearings. First is for a loan order for $40 million for wastewater. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Mercier. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council loan order to borrow $40 million for the purpose of financing the planning, study, design, implementation, construction, and installation costs of upgrades and modifications to Lowell's wastewater treatment facility, collection system facilities, and existing flood protection systems as incorporated within Phase 1A of wastewater's long-term control plan and Phase 1C of wastewater's capital improvement plan. At this time, I'd open it up for a public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. If you please just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Scott Lyman. I live at 16 Vincent Street in Lowell, Mass, in Centerville, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. Councilman Laurie has been very involved in the plight of the people in our neighborhood. I know many more that surround the streets of our neighborhood. With this ongoing issue, it hasn't been days, weeks, months, years. It's been a book-worthy saga of this flood zone, FEMA, Katrina mess that we were kind of thrown into. And we've gone through every meeting, every possible hearing that we knew about to make sure that everybody knew how this has affected our lives and our income. I'm a preschool teacher. I don't make anything. And it's this insurance that was forced upon us, and we have to pay it, no matter what. The banks say we have to pay it unless we own our house outright, and I don't own my house outright, and I don't know anybody in my neighborhood who does either. So we have to pay this every year. It's a big chunk out of our income for a neighborhood that didn't flood in the 100-year flood or the flood that came after it. And it's like asking making a blind person get car insurance when they're never going to drive their car. We have to get this flood insurance. When the 2 floods that we had recently, nobody's basement in my neighborhood even got wet, damp, nothing. So we have to give this money out because of this flood rezoning. And the impact on us has been more than substantial. And one thing, if we were going to flood, we say, well, we need it. We're not going to flood. And unless Noah's Ark comes down the road, I don't see how much water could possibly be in our neighborhood that we would flood, and we have to pay this. Now that, things have been slowly in the works, and we've been talking to so many people, and we appreciate Councilman Laurie's help with everything, and we just want to make sure that we voice ourselves and make sure that we are once again giving our faith and our focus that this is going to finally, once again, get completed, get started, get completed in a reasonable amount of time so we can start paying over at least the past 7 years. I alone, and if I think of it, it's thousands of dollars that I've had to pay out of my income that I can't put back into my home or into my life, that I have to pay for a flood that's never going to happen in my neighborhood. And it's once again that we're at this point where it's been promised that it's going to be getting taken care of, and that's why we're here tonight, to make sure that you know how important it is to us that this does get taken care of in a timely fashion as quickly as possible, as we've been told for many years now that it would be, and now it's hopefully finally coming to fruition. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, we're here again once to speak our minds about how important this is to us, and we want to make sure that you understood that also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Joe Hungler, I live at 178 Lewis Street. I'm also the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club at 657 Middlesex Street. And I want to talk on with the combined sewer and storm runoff. It causes 3 problems at the Boys and Girls Club. We have backup inside the club a couple times a year where it just comes up through the drains. Toilets kind of just run constantly. With 250 or 300 kids in the building, that's not a great health issue. And then just outside our side entrance where childcare uses that space, there is a manhole cover, sewer cover. And during the big storms, that pops off. So when that happens, 2 things happen. One is that the water that everybody's trying to prevent going into the canals goes right down to the canals. And I can tell you toilet paper and everything else goes down there too, because I've been out there when it's been happening. But the other thing, the thing that most concerns me is when the sewer cover's off, if we don't catch it right when it happens, that's wide enough for a kid to go right into. And I've been out there when it's full of water. If a kid goes down in that, somebody's going to get seriously hurt. And I don't want to see any kids get hurt. So we try to make sure whenever there's a big storm, we get out there and shove it back on. But reality is when that water's coming up, you can't do that because it comes up, it's like a fountain that kind of comes up out of that. So I just wanted to speak in favor of that because there are 250 to 350 kids a day in that building. And when you have the big storms, it has a major effect on those kids.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Hi, my name's Bob Rochlow. I live at 20 Beaudry Street. I'm a neighbor of Scott's. I'm not going to spend a lot of time repeating most of what Scott said. I just want to say that I'd like to speak in favor of the funding also, that it has adversely affected my life. Through both the flood events that happened recently, we did not have any water at all, and we've had to pay upwards of $2,000 a year in flood insurance. So I'd just like to speak in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition. Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilman Donza.
Move approval.
Move to approve by Councilman Donza, seconded by Councilor Laurie. On the motion, Councilman Donza.
Yes. I know we've had a finance subcommittee meeting on this, so we had a presentation where this was put forth. And there was the statement made that, in essence, we're required to spend this per agreement with EPA. We have to at least invest at least this amount of expense towards the CSO. Actually, this goes beyond, because it does some things besides CSO. I was also looking at how it's distributed, and it's not all done in 1 year. It's actually spread out over 5 or 6 years, some of which is done, and these are calendar years, I believe, that are listed here when they will be completed. The first thing of which is to create the plan for reducing CSOs and to be able to submit that to EPA. Then 2014, there's work for system upgrades, which is the Phase 1C part, and the flood pumping station, which the people have spoken in favor here are most concerned about, and hopefully having that completed in 2014 can begin the process of having that area rezoned as far as flooding so that they no longer have to pay that insurance, and that'll be a great savings to a lot of the residents in that area. We did hear that this would necessitate some rate increases to cover this. If I could, through the mayor to Mr. Moses or the manager, since this is distributed over many years, I assume that the bonding or the debt will actually be taken on in stages, and so there won't be one great increase to cover the entire bond, but the rate increase could be distributed over the different fiscal years, or smaller rate increases that accumulate.
That's exactly what we're trying to do with the enterprise, actually, regardless of this loan order, is to utilize the fund balance that we have to smooth the rate increases so that we don't have the shock of a big rate increase in any year, but smaller incremental rate increases, probably annually.
Yeah, because it had been stated, I believe at the time, that this would require about $17 for this, but it wouldn't all be in one fiscal year. We could take smaller chunks of that.
That's correct. And even after this is all, not that a dollar out of someone's pocket is still a dollar out of someone's pocket, but even after this is completed and on the rates, our rates would still be substantially below other communities, similar communities in the state. We would continue to have one of the lowest rates in the state.
Yeah, and I had another thing in my mind. It's kind of slipping away. Oh yes, we recently entered into new agreements with the other communities that use this.
Right.
And I believe you stated that the portions of the sewer system that they utilize in the treatment plant that this loan order is going to apply to, it's not all going to be just the city of Lowell paying this $40 million. Some percentage of that is going to be from the other communities.
That is correct. That's a change that we made in the new intermunicipal agreement so that they would pay a share of this. They, not only the work that's been done at the plant, but they'll also pay for costs associated with the CSO work as part of the overall system. Yes.
All right, so I did get a call this afternoon, someone that wanted us to make sure that we knew what would be done with the $40 million. And I mean, it's not a detailed itemization, but we do have items here that are listed that will be done with this debt. And the biggest chunk of which is $11 million. So there are several items all equal to or less than $11 million spread out over time. And there is sewer separation work in specific neighborhoods. It's not until 2016, but that's when they'll be targeting the Acre, the Highlands, and the Belvedere areas. Because Pawtucketville's been done to some extent already, and the Emery Street, or I can't remember now, Emery Street area in Pawtucketville, and in South Lowell or the Sweet Village area along Gorham Street. And this will cover other areas of the city. So I see it as something we have to do, and it certainly covers a large swath of the city that potentially everyone will see a benefit of these improvements as they take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Mercia, then Council Martin. then
Thank you,
Council
Mr. Mayor. Through you to perhaps Danny Laif. No, it would be Mark Young. It would be wastewater. I would be concerned when you pay your water and sewer bill, what percentage of that goes of your bill goes to water, and what percentage of your bill goes to wastewater? Do they?
Well, there's
How does that work when
there's two separate, on your water bill, as you know, there's three separate bills for refuse, water, and storage.
Okay.
And the storage, the sewer use, it's based upon your water usage.
So are we saying that we put more into the water enterprise fund than the wastewater? Because when we vote for the water loan order, water utility loan order, we're not going to be faced with an increase. Why would we be faced with one with wastewater?
Because of the present debt service that we have also.
Correct. It's because of the debt service that we have already in the pipeline for wastewater, it's going to draw down that fund balance at a point at which we need to be able to continue to maintain adequate revenues to pay for that debt service and this debt service.
Unfortunately, a lot of that debt service could not be contributed to the towns.
Right.
Under the new agreement that the manager spoke of, the IMAs, the work that we will be doing out in the field, like these source separation projects, can be allotted to the towns and will be. So in the past, they didn't pay anything for the debt service. In the future, they will be.
Now, I know that by supporting it, this is what we learned. We learned that it would include a flood pumping station to help reduce the flood insurance rates in the lower Centerville neighborhood area.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. Even though this is not our neighborhood, we have to look in the city as a whole, and even though it doesn't affect us, we have to do what's best for the city. And having said that, we just heard from the gentleman who's the director of the Lowell Boys and Girls Club, and yet how will that help? How will this money that we're going to appropriate help Middlesex Street over there?
As Councilor Mendoza indicated, we're going to be doing some source separation, and the Highlands is one of the targeted areas since we have a lot of problems with sewer backups in the marginal sales Middlesex Street area. So the work that we're going to be investigating in that area is going to directly help the Boys Club.
And part of this loan order is to satisfy a portion of the federal mandate that tells us that we must do certain things.
Yes.
So, although it's a bad time, Mr. Manager, to bring this forward, we have to face what's before us, and nobody appreciates or enjoys saying that we're going to bond this. This is a loan order. It's going to cost you $17 more or whatever in your water, sewer, trash, recycling bill. But the fact remains that when there's devastation in other states, people join together and send money there. This is right in our own backyard where we need to help those that are affected. And I know people, the greatest investment that you have is in your home. And when you wake up and you find that sewage backed up into your property, I can't think of anything worse than that other than a fire. So although it doesn't affect a lot of people that are probably tuning in this evening, it affects people in our own backyard, in our city, and we must do something to correct it. I don't certainly want to face the fact that I'm going to have an increase in my water, sewer, trash, but to know that it's helping someone in neighborhoods around the city, I mean, I can't put it any more clearer than that. There's a lot of portions of the puzzle that state why we're doing certain things. We're mandated to do certain things. We need to improve and continue on a regular pace to do the best that we can for the people in the city and to maintain a facility that is old. We have pipes in the road that are over 100 years old. People probably don't care about it until that pipe breaks in front of your house. Then we're all upset about it. So we have to maintain what we own. This is the motto that we take, and we have to do it. And we got to bite the bullet. It's tough, I know, but I'm going to support it.
Council Martin and then Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My calculation, and this information was presented at the subcommittee too, we've spent, over $75 million on the sewer separation project already. Even with this 40 million, that only brings us to about a third of what the total cost was in 2006, 2007 estimates. So EPA, is got us in their sights right now and wants this work done. I think the wastewater utility has done a great job working with EPA and trying to spend this money where it has the most impact on the sewer separation, and other things like flood mitigation that we've heard about in Sparks and Emery Street that hopefully will address this boys club problem, and the $11 million pump station is something that we don't necessarily think you need for flood insurance. We had severe floods in 06 and 07. Most of Centerville didn't flood, yet because that pump station is not working, FEMA will require homes in that area to have flood insurance. So I think the fact that the utility has come up with a design that gets some separation capacity in addition to the flood protection is all to their credit, and all to getting us to, so that we don't have to spend, hopefully, $300 million plus in separating our sewer, that we can make these improvements that give us most of the city separated from the storm water, from the sanitary sewer, and have a discussion with EPA that shows that we're making a good faith effort, that shows that we're sensitive to their concerns, and yet, gives taxpayers and ratepayers relief here. Even with all this, the Globe did a survey of their 50 or 60 Northwest communities, and Lowell's sewer rates were dead last in that survey. So I know this is not a vote about rate increase tonight. This is the loan order for the work, but I do appreciate the work that's gone into the plan, and I think it's a thorough, well-thought-out plan that we should support. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Laurie and then Council Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I was at the subcommittee meeting that night, and it's a lot of money, but Lowell's an old city, and the infrastructure needs quite a bit of work. And I also was involved with the flood group, and I thank them for coming tonight. There was about 270 homes, 280 homes in Centerville off Lakeview Ave, who after Katrina was put into the flood zone, and they're paying probably $2,000, $2,300 a year for insurance they really don't need. And these are homes that are behind the dike and behind the wall. They're there solely because I believe the sewers. And if we don't pass this tonight, they're gonna probably remain there unless legislation in Washington, which is currently moving along, gets passed. But that said, the 2 or 3 meetings I was involved with them, and geez, we thought we had some luck at the end. I was working with Congresswoman Songes's office, Brian Martin, and Mr. Young, and the Army Corps and FEMA, and we had the insurance companies coming in, and we were snowed out one night, and sequestering hit, and that was it. So if you don't think sequestering's hurting anybody, there's about 270 families over in Centerville. It is impacting. But just a couple of questions for Mr. Young. We discussed this briefly during the meetings we did have. When we talk about the government's role here, they're going to force us to do this one way or another, right?
Yes, there's a federal mandate for all CSO communities across the country to eliminate CSOs. And we already have a consent decree that was negotiated with the city in the Attorney General's office in 1988. And we also have an administrative order that was issued against the city in 2010.
Okay. So there's really not much choice coming in tonight. One thing I would like to say, and I know Mr. Young took part in the talks and the administration, the cost of this will probably be helped a little bit because of the agreements with the towns. They're going to pay for some of this work through the new agreements. The universities, the hospitals, the nonprofits, they'll be paying for this also. Because they pay into this with some new agreements that were passed for the past couple of years. So this isn't really, I mean, as much as you hate to pay it, this is going to be spread right across the board with everybody. And as Mr. Young says, we just don't have a choice at this. So obviously, I'm going to support it. And I'm very happy that the relief will come for the people over in Centerville. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, if we were to approve this tonight, the increase would apply for next year, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how much is it going to be for an average homeowner, the increase per year?
About $20.
$20. And will there be again, the following year, will there be another increase?
Yes.
And how much would that be? It's right around the same?
A similar amount.
So how long is that increase going to be, for how many years?
I think we saw that going out to 2017, so the next 3 or 4 years.
So the next 3 or 4 years, and then it go back
It
down?
might be less than that. Each year as we bring in more money, more revenue from the septage that's brought in, or savings that we make in energy costs, or as we do the construction work, we have it on a schedule, but if it takes a little bit longer, we don't have to bond as quickly. As Councilman Donza pointed out, this is phased in over time. So it's, that's what we're looking at for the term of these types of increases.
All right.
And again, it would still have us very low compared to, lower than every other community.
I understand. I saw that breakdowns as well as that Councilor Martin spoke of. You know, I think, you know, if it affects the Centerville or Pawtuckaville, and Joe spoke of its effect, concern with the Boy and Girl Club, you know, the sewer separations there, it's affect us all, whether that be Centerville, Pawtuckaville. It's a city, and it's our responsibility. And more than that, we have an order from the EPA that we have to do this. I understand that, you know, Mr. Young and his team have put some thought into this, and that Finance Subcommittee had deliberated and recommends that we approve this. I think this is the right step forward for us, and I hope that, you know, we at some point able to somehow, you know, cut back in terms of the increase in this wastewater, because $20 a year, and it keep going that way for more than a couple of years, it's certainly going to affect some, you know, average homeowners who cannot afford to spend that. So, but that said, I too will support this. I think this is a must, because we as a city have to comply with the federal, the EPA. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I talked about the Centerville group. I'd just like to ask Mr. Young about the Rosemont area on the other side of the Beaver Brook. They've been involved with the flooding too. Now, would this investment help them and help them come out of the flood zone?
Yes, it would. The reason that they're paying the flood insurance is because the Lowell flood system has been decertified. There were 3 elements we had to address. We've addressed the first 2 elements. The last element to address is the pump station. Once the pump station is addressed, and we have to go through the process of recertifying the flood control system, then the insurance will be mitigated from those homeowners.
So once we get the pump station up and going, these areas that have been notorious for flooding, that will make an impact to move that water out of there quicker and it'll come out of the flood zone?
Yes.
So basically, we'll be looking at saving, with major flooding, probably millions of dollars for the people in the city in these areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson?
This line of questioning, I want to caution that the Rosemont area is not protected by the levee. So I don't think it would be covered by the pump station.
It'd be the Rosemont, if you're referring to the Rosemont area.
The Rosemont area is on the other side of Beaver Brook.
On Bowden, Vincent Street and Bowden Street, that area will be protected.
Oh, okay.
But not the area on the other side.
All right. That's what I was considering. Rosemont was the area on the other side of Beaver
I think the
Brook.
council was referring to the section I just spoke of.
Oh, okay. Very good. And the, we've been talking about the rate increase. That's when all of this debt is taken on, correct? It'd be about $17 to $20. But is that an annual amount on average, for the average?
Yeah, it is.
So on a quarterly bill, people will see a quarter of that as an increase. So it'd be somewhere in the $4 to $5 range on any given bill, if they're an average water user.
On average.
Could be higher, could be lower if they're deviate from the average. All right, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Young spoke to this, and I just wanted to sort of highlight it a little bit. He spoke of the decertification. I think it's a great example of the effect of what happens when the city doesn't invest. The city was given this flood control system back in the 1940s, and with the caveat that it would maintain this system. And the city was put on notice back in the early 2000s that maintenance had not taken place. And unfortunately, there weren't investments made at the time to bring it up to the level that it needed to be up to. And so, which resulted, I recall, it was then Councilor Caulfield asked me to set up a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers to come out and look at the flooding area, and that's when they brought a copy of the correspondence that had been sent to the city, which basically put us on notice that they were going to decertify us, and in fact they did. But so that's what prompted us, and some of the members of the council were here at the time, and some supported, and most supported this investment to do the levee and do the other work, the tree work that was needed out there. And this is the final part of that to bring us back into compliance with the Corps of Engineers flood control system. But it is a sort of example of why the city has to maintain and has to invest in its infrastructure.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott?
I'm required by law to disclose that I work for the Environmental Protection Agency, and I'm not allowed to vote on this. I have to abstain. I didn't have anything to do with the negotiation or, the ROD or the consent decree, but I still work there, so I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy. Yes. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendonça.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott. 8 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a loan order for $22,800,000. Motion to waive the full rating by Counsel Laurie, seconded by Counsel Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council loan order to borrow $22,800,000 for the purpose of financing the planning, study, design, implementation, and construction and installation costs of upgrades and modifications to Lowell's water treatment facility and distribution system. At this point, I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition. Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Council Martin, second by Council Mendonça. Any discussion? Council Elliott.
We did have a conversation at the Finance Subcommittee, and I just want to reiterate, Mr. Manager, this loan order will require no rate increase, correct?
We don't see a rate increase on this in the water enterprise until, right now, 2029.
Okay. 2029. I know you had alluded earlier, or I think it was at that subcommittee meeting, about funding from the water to offset costs of the wastewater. And are they both enterprise proprietary funds? They are. So how is that possible?
Well, what would happen is effectively, and obviously this is something that we'll be taking up down the road when we look at rate increases in wastewater, but the thought was to mitigate some of the impact of the wastewater increases on our residents, we could look at the possibility of doing a decrease in the water rates for a period of time to sort of cushion the blow.
Okay.
So people would see their wastewater rates go up, but their water rates go down, and the effect would be about the same. Now, you couldn't do that forever.
Right.
You'd actually have to go up in the water before 2029 under that scenario. But so we're just looking at that as a possibility we may want to explore when we look at rate
Okay, so
increases too.
that is still on the table to reduce the impact of the wastewater increase.
Yeah,
But there'll be no water increase.
Right, we want to look at it a little bit. Again, it would require the self-discipline or self-awareness to know that it couldn't stay down forever then, that the water would have to then climb back up at some point when you could sort of level off the wastewater more. It would be a balancing that we would be doing.
I did get the report from Mr. Leah from the subcommittee meeting. I appreciate it. So is this the last project for some time at the water department?
I would say so. I mean, this is really hitting the major issues we have of redundancy with the distribution system affecting the reservoir improvements that are
dams,
needed,
yeah.
the residential metering, and then dealing with the lagoon problems. And in fact, we need to do something with those lagoon problems. We had a very serious issue that affected wastewater just a couple weeks ago with an overflow from the lagoons that affected the wastewater plant and caused some concern for us for over a couple of days. So this was really the last big piece of that puzzle.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Councilor Martin?
I can appreciate the sentiment of maybe wanting to raise one to offset the other, but for the resident, it's on the same bill. You know, the water and sewer billed together, so, I mean, I don't know how many hoops you want to jump through when it's not really it's not like you're gonna pay one bill one month, the other one the other month. They all come at the same time. But I think it's worthy to explore, but I'm not sure how worthwhile it'll be in the end.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Madonza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, under utility public hearings, we have National Grid to install underground conduit from the manhole to the building at 27 Prescott Street. At this point, I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in favor.
Hi, Michelle Stacy. I'm a representative for National Grid. We're looking to install conduit to service 27 Prescott Street, which is going to be Teen Equality Center. So we're just asking for permission to...
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. I'm Jessica Valentine. I'm a Special Projects Coordinator at the United Teen Equality Center, and I'm here in support representing the organization, also our Executive Director, Greg Croteau, who can make it this evening, in support of moving forward the work that needs to be done by National Grid in order to provide additional services to the Prescott location we have, which will go ahead and help us further service the high-risk youth in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd entertain then a motion to refer to the wire inspector for report and recommendation. So moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Returning to the agenda, under the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, we all received your report. I'm on item D on the agenda, which would be the response to my motion on the police details or lack thereof. Okay. I just had a couple of questions. In the narrative, you say two things. One, you say that the University of Lowell, we do utilize the University of Lowell's police force.
We do we do on a regular basis, and we're working with them to do the details, the liquor details.
Okay, so we don't use them for liquor details yet.
We didn't at that time, but we've since incorporated that we use them for other details and other work.
Yes.
And they have expressed a willingness. The other partners that we've talked to are not interested in working any liquor details. As I indicated that when we talked about this before, they don't, the area communities generally don't do liquor details. You only do the state police, but the sheriff's office and others have indicated.
Yes.
Right.
But in your narrative, you said that you were speaking with one police department, I think, in a neighboring community that you thought might be interested. Is that correct?
I believe
or did that just not pan out, or?
That one has not worked out. We're still, the police have indicated that was the case, but that has not panned out as of right now.
Okay. So basically, the only thing that we have to look for to augment what we have is UMass Lowell's police force.
That's correct.
Okay, and then also in the same report on the chart, which describes how many went unfilled, is there a difference between going unfilled and list exhausted? In other words, if the list is exhausted, wouldn't it be unfilled? Wouldn't the detail be unfilled? And so what's the distinction there on that chart?
I'd have the difference would be that and the list exhausted, it would be that we went through and we filled everything we could, but then we didn't have anything else. It would be effectively the same, but it would be the difference being that we couldn't necessarily get them for that. We didn't run all the way through. We just couldn't get anyone to work it.
Okay. All right. So it isn't so bad, is it? It's just, but still, we should make an effort, at least in those downtown areas, downtown establishments, to try to get them filled, I think.
If we can, again, there are issues of doing that over taking police officers off the street. I'd prefer to have the police officers on the street than in a liquor establishment.
Yeah.
Because they can respond more effectively to different locations then. But certainly anything we can do to sort of fill those, we're going to be doing.
Well, I agree with you in general, but I do think that if an establishment requests police coverage, that we should make every effort to do that, within reason, which if all we've got to go by besides our own force is UMass Lowell, then that's all that there is. But we should try to do that for people that are actually asking for it.
The only other issue I have is the sort of the liability issue that we sometimes, and we've stuck with the same system that the city has always used of providing details. I do have some concerns about liability once we get into a liquor establishment. That tends to be the places that lawsuits do occur.
Right. And so how are we working that out with UMass Lowell? How is that gonna, because
they would be the second after the list is exhausted. If we cannot fill it, then we would look to the university.
I'm sorry, I mean, as far as liability goes,
they would incur that liability.
Okay, but they're okay with doing that, or at least they seem to?
They've indicated that at this time.
Okay. And then, all right, so anyways, I think it's a pretty good report all in all. I did notice that you included a political column from early in September, which you describe as is this your impression of an editorial?
No, actually, that was the wrong article that was put in. I have a copy of the editorial here that I thought was more, was what was supposed to have been in there.
I understand, Mr. Manager. Thanks.
I recognize the difference between an editorial and a...
Council Leahy.
Thank you. Along with this report and the other report for downtown, the report from Councilor Elliott, I think we have a few subcommittees set up maybe, or a public safety subcommittee. And I just wanted to maybe bring it to the attention that maybe at the subcommittee, we should be talking about the possibility of taking a look at, if we don't want to put details in the bars, maybe we could figure out how many people actually are on details, and those police officers could be walking or cruising the downtown area. So that would be one option to look at. If we did want to explore that, you know, I don't know, I don't have the number in front of me now, but there could be a handful of police officers that could be in the downtown area during these trouble hours. And that might be a good way to, a different approach and a good way to try it and see if it works.
Right. We do add additional police officers, as you know, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, but certainly one possibility that does exist is for a number of the establishments to chip in to pay for additional officers that could handle the downtown area. So that's worth pursuing, I think.
All right, because I'd like to explore that. I do see them out and you see them driving around, but maybe I'd like to see them walking too. I think, you know, we should explore that also. Thank you.
Councilor Martin. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to your point, Councilor, I think that's wise that these matters be discussed at the Public Safety Subcommittee. So I would make a motion to refer these two reports, as well as the report that I guess was generated out of the License Commission, to the Public Safety Subcommittee. Be my intention to take this stuff up. We've been meeting the second Tuesday of every month, and I would like to continue that discussion next week.
Second. Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilman Johnson. Mr. Manager?
The other motion that was made that I was hoping we could work into that same public safety subcommittee is a motion by Councilor Mercier to discuss the issues of the downtown and issues, or I think actually expanded throughout the entire city. And I think that would be an appropriate place to do that as well.
That's fine with me. I just did want to comment on the report, I guess, from Mr. Bakey, you know, that was requested by the License Commission about sort of late-night activity in the downtown. And there's been quite a bit of work that went into this, and I wanted to make sure it was commented upon because, you know, granted it was not a scientific survey of interested parties, but at least they talked to a dozen people with various perspectives about the downtown and other parts of the city. There were some quite interesting observations from those people. You know, my sense is, you know, that we have some work to do still in the downtown. But I think for the most part, it seems people have embraced the notion of cracking down on places that generate the problems, that sort of a general rollback of hours is not going to be the solution. Now, that wasn't the conclusion of everybody, but at least my impression is that was the conclusion of most. It also, and I think the License Commission has taken a more aggressive stance. We've seen reports coming out of them from suspensions and penalties that they're handing down. So I think the License Commission is acting much more aggressively. I understand it does take time for the police to bring a complaint, to build your case, to have a hearing, to take action, then for the pain of that action to be absorbed, and then to then modify behavior. So, you know, it's less than an ideal process, and it is taking time, and hopefully over time it will have an impact. But I do think that there's a lot of good information in this report, and I think we would be well advised to continue to discuss it and see what we can do to address some of the things that still continue to be raised here.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Councilman Donser on communications.
Yeah, well, it's related to these communications. As I've attended some neighborhood meetings, the downtown neighborhood after the shootings, they had a meeting about safety. I think many councils attended. And also at the Jambra meeting that they had at the Appleton Mills, where Deputy Superintendent Ryan was grilled about some of the things going on, narcotics-driven, and the perception that it's not as safe as it could be from the new residents in that area. And as we go to the campaign functions, I think we're all hearing that the perception is that there's an increase in gun violence and stabbings, and people are very concerned. I'm getting feedback that some people feel less safe now than they did a few months ago. I know the police are assuring us that most of these incidents are people that know each other. They are narcotics related. They don't generally involve random individuals in the community, but still they're afraid that someone shooting off a gun may miss the intended target and an innocent could be hurt. And so they would like to see something taken on. I think the Public Safety Subcommittee is a good start, but I think the police, maybe department themselves through the manager, needs to take a look at this as to how they could deal with this in a better way. Even if they may not think it's the reality, right now perception is reality. And we need to deal with that perception and make people feel safer. Jackson, Appleton, Middlesex, downtown, and the Lower Highlands seem to be the key areas. And of course, there's some activity in Centerville to be concerned with as well. Now, the police have the data. They can see what's going on in different areas, but still, they're often chasing these things. And when they increase patrols in one area, the incidents happen where they are not. So it's a difficult thing, but we're going to have to deal with it and maybe get some feedback through the manager from the police department as to where things are breaking down, what resources are needed. Maybe the police are doing their job, but the courts are releasing these people. And if that's the case, we need to know that to see what else we could do to get support either from the state or the delegation or whatever we need to do. Or is there more equipment that would help with these issues? And we'll need to know that. And again, I think the Public Safety Subcommittee is a start for that, but we're going to need input from the police department as well, and ultimately probably have to send the information on to our state delegation to help us with things that we can't do here locally.
Thank you. Councilor Martin, then Councilor Noon, then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along those lines, Jackson Street's been having problems, Middlesex Street, the Lower Highlands. I'm not going to, do we reach out for help at the state level? I know the courts are letting them out. I filed the motion last year, and I believe that, I know the delegation brought it down to the State House to allow municipalities to become a victim, and I don't think that there's much taste at the State House to pass that along. I know our delegation was very happy to bring it down. I don't know where it's going. I don't know if it will pass to the muster down in Boston. But do we start thinking about bringing maybe a meeting with the district attorneys and what our rights are with the police, what we can do? My understanding, some of these people just coming out of prison, they're coming back here. I remember years ago delivering mail. There was a couple of drug houses, and the police would raid the house, and inspectional services was boarding it up right as they were coming out. And I don't know if you can do that anymore. But I think, and we're in a flux right now. We're still you're still interviewing for police chief, so there's the influx there. But I concur with Councilman Mendonça. Something has to be done. These aren't random shootings, but they're shootings. And they're shootings in neighborhoods, they're shootings near people. And it's discerning, and people are afraid to walk the streets. And we have to take control of that in certain areas. And how do we do it? And I know the subcommittee meets. Do we ask for help at another level even to come in?
Mr. Manager?
Well, along those lines, Council, we have been working jointly with the state police. The state police has been providing quite a bit of coverage and help to us. And I know that the police department's been working with the sheriff's office and bringing their equipment in from time to time, as well as we have a very good relationship with the district attorney's office that on a number of these issues, but I think you hit the nail on the head that, actually Councilman Donster as well, that these incidents that sort of started back at late August, which is described in some of these reports, sort of the impetus to some of this that has taken place, and or the start of this, and we're working through a number of those issues with people that are sort of come back into the city, and so there are a number of some arrests have already been made. There are a number of leads that are being worked on, and we're seeing some progress on that front. But
No, that's good, because I did know we had a unit at one time that dealt specifically with that, and if we're moving along in that direction, that's good. Just talking to people, they can't be afraid to walk, and even though they are targeted shooting from what we're hearing, we have to try to find a way, but if the state police are now involved and the local police and we're using other resources, at least that's a good first step. Thank you.
Council Noon and then Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, is the monthly meeting still going on between the interagency, the law enforcement and youth organization and all that?
yes, those do still continue.
And that's where a lot of confidential information being shared involving all these youth activities and whatnot, right?
Right, and these really aren't, the issue is that we have with these aren't really, and that's a key difference is, there's several levels of monthly meetings going on. The one that involves the youth, many of these issues that we're seeing really, we've made great progress with the youth of the community. It's with the older individuals that we're actually having some of these issues, and but there are interagency meetings that take place that's with more confidential information that takes place as well.
So a couple of these recent drive-by, most likely involving some drug activities, is not involving youth.
That's correct.
That we are talking about here.
That's correct.
Right. So when people talk about this is gang issues, it may not be so.
They're potentially gang-related, but not gang-related in the way that it was in the past, where it was young people involved with it. It's older gang members.
Has there been a monthly meeting, reach out to the community or the neighborhood in terms of discuss these issues and elicit their support and their, contact the police department if they see anything suspicious?
Absolutely. Right.
I
think that's the key part, is we need the assistance of the citizenry to help us address these issues.
Right, because it's appeared that a number of the neighborhood this day has been very active and engaged in what's going on because they concerned about the safety of their families and their neighborhood.
Correct.
I urge that the police department continue this. It's not just with the downtown, but also spread it and do it more often to all community. Because certainly when you get the community to involve the resident to active and engage, and certainly you can help solve a lot of the problem in our city. It certainly is an ongoing, focus. We can't get our eye off it. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Besides violent crime and crimes against a person, there's also seems to have been an increase recently in property crimes and vandalism in the neighborhoods. I think that everybody's probably received emails recently about that. I know of one case where a person had 4 tires stolen from their car in the driveway, and then they got new tires and they put it in the car into the garage, and the 4 tires were stolen out of the garage. And it happened a 3rd time in the garage. That's 12 tires, 3 sets of tires. But also there seems to be, in some areas of Pawtuckettville, there seems to be an increase in that. And that, I think that happens from time to time, but certainly the police cars that are patrolling in the neighborhood should be on the lookout for that, I think, on all shifts, because I think that most of it probably doesn't happen in the day, it happens in the night, maybe late at night. But that's maybe something that the subcommittee could address, and also maybe you want to take that up with the interim police chief.
Mr. Manager.
Actually, I think on that one, we did see over the last few months, there was an incident or an increased incidence of that type of activity, of tires being, wheels being stolen. And we think that that has been resolved. We're still working through, but we believe that some arrests that were made in that may have dealt with that. The Pawtuckaville, I did see that email earlier as well. That seems to indicate that there's been an uptick, and I have to check with the police department on the data related to that. And but I've asked for them to get me that that information as well.
Thank you. Council Leahy and then Council Elliott.
Thank you. Just quickly to the manager, do you have a timeline on when the new chief will be selected? I know we've been...
Yeah, we're still shooting for the end of October, beginning of November.
Okay, thank you.
Council Elliott.
Thank you. I welcome sending this to the Public Safety Subcommittee because I do think it's timely, not only to look at the downtown, but, you know, all of the other issues of crime and violent crime in the city. And people, in my opinion, are generally concerned, and quite frankly, I don't feel they feel completely safe. Shootings, stabbings, you know, breaking and entering in the neighborhoods. People have to lock their cars. So I think the timing is good because there seems to be an escalation, or people are generally concerned with safety in the city. You know, shootings on the front page of the newspaper, and in the news, it gets out to everybody. And first of all, it's a safety issue, and it does. I'm not sure it sends the message that we clearly want to. So I personally believe we need, you know, public safety should be the priority in this city. And you know, sometimes I hear people speak almost with a kind of laissez-faire attitude. Oh, well, it's a city, and you know, you have to expect this to happen. I don't think that's the approach that we should be taking. I don't think that's the attitude that we should be addressing public safety in the city. You know, people should not have to be a victim of any crime, of violent crimes, or be afraid to walk anywhere in the city at any given time. So I think it's important for us to find out as what are we doing, what else are we doing, engaging the community, making sure there's, you know, police response, because people are afraid in the city, and we need to refocus our efforts and our vigilance, if you will, to public safety. I mean, there are many good things going on in the city. There's no doubt about it. But if we start losing any sentiment that people aren't safe in the city, then we're going to see for sale signs and then we're not going to get new people into the city. So I think it's welcome to have a public safety committee meeting and get a report on, you know, not only downtown, filling shifts, because it's all, you know, it's all one comprehensive approach that we need to take. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion on the communications from the city manager? Councilor Noon?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank the managers in working on the Mulligan Park. And not only that you did that, but also you went on to did some cleaning on Durant, which is that we went and looked at it. It was a mess, and you did some cleanup there, which is a good thing. My question with Mulligan Park is that you indicated that the estimate cost is, should there be any work going forward, that it would be $650,000, and how many of those will be, you know, taken or paid for by the LHA, because we talk about partnership here.
Correct.
So is the LHA agreed to
those discussions
pay for this?
Those discussions are ongoing.
Ongoing.
There's interest in doing that, but they have to identify the sources of funds that they'll be able to tap in to do that.
So how soon will be the meeting between you and or the city and the LHA and or the resident in discussing this plan?
Well, we've already had one. I've already had one meeting, but the staff has already had a couple of meetings on this, and we hope to nail this down probably by the end of this calendar year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the communications? Entertain a motion then to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilman Mendoza, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication to reappoint Mr. William D. Sheehan Jr. to the Council on Aging.
Move approval.
Second.
Move to approve by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Noon. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendoza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes,
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
9 yeas.
and thank you to Mr. Sheehan for serving. Next, we have a communication, report, and recommendation from the Planning Board regarding the proposed amendment relative to temporary construction trailers. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager. Request approval of out-of-state travel, one for the Lowell Police Department, one for wastewater utility.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Noon. Roll call, please.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendoza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have an order for a 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mendoza, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council order. Pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Move to approve by Council Martin, seconded by Council Mendoza. Roll call, please.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendoza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. We have reports, subcommittee reports.
Go ahead.
Any announcements? Council Mendoza.
Yes, I'm going to be scheduling a finance subcommittee for October 22nd at 5:30 to discuss the funding of the senior center lease.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
I just have a brief report from the Lowell Commission on Disability this month. Actually, one of the members, Providential, would like to make an announcement, if that's okay, regarding an event October 19th. Council Laurie, I wonder, maybe you could give her a
Just Mike,
microphone, please.
If
You
you
have to
could,
press the button.
There we go. Okay. In celebration of Disability Awareness Month, and in keeping with celebrating the different abilities, because that's how I like to consider it, instead of disabilities, different abilities and the strengths that the disabled community can bring to the entire community, we have an activity, and I was wanting to set an open invitation on October 19th. And what we're going to do in continuing the celebration of diversity is we're going to have a multicultural interfaith service for the entire community. And it's going to be at 282 Shattuck Street, which is St. Patrick's Church, Saturday, October the 19th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Suffolk Street, isn't it?
Yes, 282 Suffolk. October 19th at 4 p.m.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Councilor Elliott.
That was it, Mr. Mayor. The chairman that was here earlier just gave a brief update on the closed caption, and that's the only other event we wanted to mention. Everything else is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to accept and place on file, so moved by Counsel Lowry, seconded by Counsel Leahy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Under general petitions, we have one claim for property damage. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation. So moved by Counsel Mercia, seconded by Counsel Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. First motion of the night, Counsel Elliott. Request the city manager have proper department investigate the installation of yellow fluorescent crosswalk signage at crosswalks located within school zones. Second by Councilor Noon, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. I had some copies that I will hand out of signs. It's just it's an example that was sent to me by a mom, and what essentially is just a fluorescent sign that has that identifies a crosswalk, and then there's a smaller sign that says arrow, and it just identifies the crosswalk for people, for drivers, and it makes some sense that we could at least look into it. I know there's a funding issue, but I was thinking primarily around schools where people are driving, they may not see the crosswalk, whether it's, dark or not, but they're fluorescent and they're pretty attractive, and they clearly are, they can identify the sidewalk areas. So I'll find the pictures and give a copy to Mr. Manager and members.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
If I may, I know I try not to respond necessarily on the spot, but I will to this motion. I think that's a great idea, and Council, let's consider it done in the school districts, at least, that we'll put those out there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Council Leahy?
Thank you. Do we still have, there were grants out there, right? Safe routes to school and programs like that, so
we did receive grants for 2 schools, but those are limited, and they're very limited in the extent of their funding as well.
All right, because when I brought that up a while ago, like the city of Nashua, I think, got some sort of a grant for the safe routes to schools, and they were able to paint crosswalks red, and they had a lot of this fluorescent signage up.
Right. That's the funding that we use to do the actual sidewalks out in the Centerville area. So we did that.
McAuliffe and the Robinson.
Right. McAuliffe and the Robinson. So, but I don't believe that funding. There is any funding right now for that. But these are something we should be able to handle.
Okay. Yeah, because we brought that up for Varnum Ave too and stuff like that. So throughout the city. Thank you.
Right. We'll start with the school zones and then we'll move from there.
I would also say the Department of Planning and Development has been working over the summer on a walkability study of the entire city with a focus on schools and neighborhood business districts. Any further discussion of this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, request the city manager have proper department enforce the provisions of the new parking placard ordinance. Seconded by Councilor Lowry. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. I got a request from a resident regarding this. Didn't know if Mr. Backey was here, but essentially, one of the major concerns was the old signs, the old placards that, and if you travel around the city, you can still see that some of them are still up. I'm not sure how that works. One of the suggestions was when inspectors go under the new ordinance, when they do the mandatory inspection for these units, that they can have them taken down. But there are a fair amount of them. In fact, I was in Centerville last night. We were all in Centerville last night, and there were still some old placards still up. The other concern was there are multi-family unit dwellings that have a number of signs up, and if you look at the ordinance, that doesn't seem to be acceptable. So the question was to you, Mr. Manager, particularly with the placards, the old placards, is there a process? I know Inspectional Services issues the new ones, but how do we know if those are taken down?
Well, when we receive, we've tried to notify everyone, but there were a number of these that were sent out through the years that nobody kept track of, going back years ago. And so that's what we ran across, and with that. But when we do find that there are unauthorized signs, if it's a bad sign, a void sticker is attached and a letter is sent to remove or turn in the sign to the parking department. And at this point, we've received over 60 signs. So we continue to find these, and I will say that if we don't get if no action is taken within a certain period of time, a second letter is sent with a date that a fine will be issued. But after that second letter, they've always turned them in, and we've issued the new. So that's sort of friendly approach has worked so far. But clearly, there are people that or properties that have these. Probably not the people that got them to start with, that run with the property, and we're just still working them through the system.
Okay, so if residents have concerns so some of these placards are illegal, clearly, and they're not going to take them down, or there may just be tenants or renters that have them. So letters have been sent out to everybody that has been issued, and when they come in and get their new one, are they required to turn in their old one?
Yes.
They are?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I got a call from somebody up on Christian Hill regarding this, regarding old signs that were up, and it's the parking department that handles those now.
That's correct.
And so I just called them up, and they were up that day, and I think they got rid of them. So it was a very, very quick response from the parking department. But it's my understanding that we don't know where they all are. So really, we would kind of depend on either having people, call in to say where there are out-of-date signs. And aside from that, you'd have to have people go look out on a Saturday, I guess, and, as an overtime or a special little project to sweep the city of all of those. But, maybe if there's no list and nobody knows where they all are, I suppose that even if we went through that exercise, we wouldn't find them all.
Correct. We started keeping a list, 7 or 8 years ago, I believe. But prior to that time, they were, or maybe even that list goes back even further. But prior to that time, they were just handed out when someone came in and asked for them, and there wasn't a. So therefore, we have trouble getting a hold of everyone that has one.
Councilman Donza?
Yes, over the last few months, I forwarded several complaints to the manager who forwarded them to the parking department. It seems like two main areas of complaints right now is that with the new signs, people are getting them because even though it's one parcel, that particular parcel has two different address numbers, and we need some way to check to make sure that they're not getting multiple signs for the same parcel. They're not allowed. And Council Laurie and Council Mercer and I were at the Back Central Neighborhood meeting, and this issue came up that there seems to be a lot of signs going up, and especially on properties that have driveways. And the ordinance specifically prohibits that in the Back Central area, that if there's driveway, it's not allowed. And there was one resident, this is something that's not covered in the ordinance yet. We kind of discussed it when we were reviewing it, but it's still an issue going forward, and that's one-way streets. So where one side, either one-way street or narrow streets where one side is no parking. So the people on that side of the street can't get a reserved parking because they can't park. And then if all their neighbors on the other side get reserved parking, they don't have anywhere to park. So they're concerned about that. So especially in the cases where there's a driveway on the property that they're not supposed to get it, that's making matters worse. So the two things that need to really be enforced right now are in the Back Central area to see if there's a driveway, they're not supposed to have it, and then if the parcel's got two addresses, two address numbers for the same parcel, that they're not giving out multiple signs in those lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, requested the election department address the signage issue at Pawtucket Memorial polling location. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I got a couple of calls. One was from a woman that was very upset with the pardon me, with the polling location and the difficulty in finding where to vote. So I know it was late notice, but why was that polling location changed in such, I guess it was kind of short notice, but...
Right. The solicitor can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe the issue there was Corey-related. It wasn't the area in question was in an area that you need to be Corey certified to enter, and so therefore it was a request to us that we actually, by the school department, I believe, that we address that. Council, the solicitor.
Madam Solicitor.
Sure. The part of the issue was Corey, and that was one of the serious issues. There were also some accessibility issues associated with that particular site in terms of a lack of a curb cut for handicap entrance. In the long run, there will be other sites that we are going to correct, but this was one that we wanted to address right away. Since it had two issues attached to it. And we also envisioned it as being a fairly contained change, location-wise.
Okay. Can we improve the signage moving forward? Because,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw what was out there, but it was, most of the other, if not all the other locations had the big sandwich, and this had, it had a very small sign, and if you didn't know where you were going, it wasn't very good. And I think we have to make it as easy and as clear for voters, particularly when the location or the direction is changed before, so soon. So.
The solicitor and I spoke about this earlier today, actually. We got the complaint, the first that we really got, it was, I think, after the fact that there were some issues raised, but we've already started working on requiring new signs to put out at all locations, particularly that one.
Okay. Did you add something? The solicitor have anything?
I was going to say much the same thing. We had the sandwich board out there and another sign as well. There were two signs in the morning, which was what we had at all the other locations. But when there was any evidence of confusion, we went out with 4 laminated additional signs with arrows and directions. But moving forward, we'll make sure that if more is needed, we'll have more needed for a smoother transition. We also had a police officer during the day assisting with any questions that people might have directing.
Can I just ask one more? What is the Corey issue? Because we have voting locations at many schools, so just want to, are there any other Corey issues with the other schools?
In this particular school, for example, in order to for a poll worker to access the bathroom, the poll worker would have no choice but to commingle in where the students are. In the new location, that's not a problem, and so that's an example of the Corey issues that we're running into at the prior location.
Okay, and all the other polling locations at schools, everything's all set.
Should be, and we're also for the general election, the schools will not be in session, so that eliminates it for the general. But moving forward, we will have times where that won't always be the case, and at least we'll have sites in which the matter will nevertheless be addressed, even if school is in session.
School's not going to be in session?
No.
Okay, across the city. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor. The Corey issue, I thought it pertained to just voters coming in and being able to go into, to access the whole school facility property. But is it not that? It's poll workers? And if it is just poll workers, would it be unreasonable to have them get a Corey check? Is that difficult to do, or?
It would be cumbersome, given that it's really just for, say, a single day event, and there is a cost associated with it. But the Corey, you're correct in the sense that the Corey issue extends well beyond poll workers.
Okay.
It's just the poll workers that I used as an example.
Okay.
Councilor Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking about signage at this point, and I didn't want to bring this in as a motion, I talked to a couple of people who went to polling places and they sent volunteers or someone from the polling outside, if they could have some type of shirt to designate they're with the Election Commission, they might have had a little card or a little badge, but especially after 6 o'clock at night, it's getting a little dark. And at least one resident made the suggestion, even if they had some type of shirt that designate who they were. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, request the election department provide a report and explanation regarding the changes in polling locations. Seconded by Councilor.
The motion essentially speaks for itself. I know that we briefly touched on this, I think it was a week ago, but in advance or moving forward, I mean, there's, the election's only 4 weeks away. Has that determination been made, Mr. Manager or Madam Solicitor, that, some polling locations will be moved as a result of a state law with alcohol being served?
Yeah, we're not going to be moving anything else for the general election. Everything that was done in the preliminary election is staying as is.
So is there a state law? I mean, I thought you alluded to, or as a result of my question, that any polling locations that people are not allowed to have it at a place where there's alcohol being served.
Madam Solicitor?
Right, that is one of the issues that we'll be addressing long-term. We didn't want to make too many changes all at once. And obviously, balancing it out, the most important thing is for an orderly election that people can get to cast their ballot and head home. So the changes that I think effectively need to be made, we tried to do it in 2 phases, so that this first phase, it'll be fairly well contained, 2 limited choices. The other one was, of course, the Masonic Temple moving to the Songus Arena. One of the things that we had done is we had reached out, and I know that Jeff Wilson is here. We had had a meeting with Jeff and another member of the Disability Commission. The Masonic Temple, aside from just sort of the downtown outgrowing that particular space, you have 3 precincts there. There were also issues regarding accessibility. For example, the ramp, we were informed, was really not of a grade that was conducive to, say, wheelchairs. The door was also a door that was quite heavy and was very cumbersome for disabled and probably the elderly. So there were a number of issues with the Masonic Temple, and that was something that we wanted to address right away, along with the Wang. And then there'll be another rollout. I should note that we'll be sending out notices again to those that were affected, just as we had sent them out before. And certainly the next time there's the next phase of changes that will be coming, the manager has thought it was appropriate if we send out at least 3 notices to voters prior to the next phase of changes coming about.
So we're not going to be in violation of the state law?
We have been in violation of the state law probably for many years. But again, in terms of balancing the violation of the law that we've been living with for many years and changing a number of polling locations throughout the city, we decided to err on the side of doing it in a contained way where we have enough staff. If there is confusion, we have enough staff to go in and address whatever the problems may be, as opposed to doing it in multiple locations all across the city and having an effect, which is the worst case scenario, which would be that people were confused, didn't get to vote, and things of that nature. So we thought it was more appropriate, more responsible to do it in 2 phases and do it in a much more, again, controlled manner.
How many locations, my last question, how many locations are we looking at that would have to, or inevitably will have to be moved if we're not in compliance?
We may have about 5 or 6 more locations that need to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Mercer, request the city manager have departmental services instruct owners to make safe the area between 919 and 933 Varnum Avenue by cutting back the trees that are obstructing the view near the doable manor. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion has been completed. That's fast work. Thank you very much.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, So voted. Counselor Elliott?
Yeah, I just want to follow, I want to thank Henry. I should have let Council Mercia know. But the owners have also agreed to let the city do that. I mean, which is good. They're not going to do it themselves. I mean, this is a long-standing challenge. There are pine trees, they grow quickly, and it just seems like a couple of years ago, we were bringing the same motion in because it's a very dangerous corner at Old Ferry and Barnum Ave, and at a very dangerous intersection. So is there any way, when we reach out to the owners to say, you know, is it a it's a condominium complex?
Do you know that?
Mr. Martian?
I think it's the complex that had the pine trees, right?
There too, there's, right next to the Duville site is a row of houses, and the single
Right.
family has a row of pines. The pines continue down into the condominium complex
Oh.
and border the drive of the condominium as well as Kelly Circle.
Okay.
And they're on private, so the hope is, I think they were put up for privacy
Right.
and to block lights from Ferry Road, but the owner has given us permission to take it back, and we'll take it back to be able to get a line of sight that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Counsel Kennedy, second by Counsel Lowry. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. We stand adjourned.